I guess we're running. And you can hear the pitter patter on our roof. That's the rain. And I'm going to advertise this now to a few folks. Looks like there's something there. Call that. And that square is supposedly what Soho satellite saw on the sun's corona a bunch of years back when we were getting a lot of images that Scott Waring was working on a lot, and uh, DP Earthwatch, the original one. I think someone else took over his name. Anyway, so share this. We'll see how fast it shares. See what the activity is around here, and that was pretty quick. I guess even though it's raining, we got a decent signal so far. That good out of the side of the voice out of nowhere was Kathy, who's got a coloring project she's doing. Our whole house is filled with coloring projects on the walls. It's very beautiful. What's going on with Twitter? I'm not getting a Twitter. Did China take it over already? I wonder if China owned it, whether it would be better or worse. The second time I came up, okay. Popped out the chat. There's nobody here. And so I guess I'll just read my introduction, which is one that if you do join us, um, there's supposedly 4 individuals watching. So uh, you've heard before if you've joined us here before. I mean, because I talked about tape 288 last time, last live stream, and that was several days ago. But so this is my rough notes. My name is Sawyer, and from listening to audio tape 288 that was recorded while I was present on January 14th, 1988. So this is my classroom. This is in Yodo, my teacher talking to us. And so I am a witness to that. Anyway, um, So this tape has topics in it, like many of the tapes that Doe made and T and Doe made together for the 10 years that T was in her vehicle, which only the tapes only started in 1982. And T and Doe were together with us from 1975 when they first started to get students till when T left her body, left her vehicle in our terminology in 1985. And then Doe was the only older member teacher that was um, helping the classroom move ahead.
In his vehicle.
Yes, in his vehicle, actually, in this tape, it talks about how, I'm going to go right to it, actually. Um, that he, now these are very rough notes, so they're not accurate. I put in my own words in there sometimes, and so and I'm not going to explain why I'm leaving it that way. But what Doe is saying in this is that he wanted the students to think of T and Doe as the vibration contained in their spirit bodies. So much so that if that if that spirit body is around any of us outside the physical body, you would recognize their vibration, just like the way that he recognizes the student's spiritual body. So he was actually teaching the practical, technical method of attaching to, bonding with, and being open to and receiving of a certain individual's mind. And in this case, everybody believed that that mind were their older members, T and Doe, and T was Doe's older member. And the difference between older members and younger members, well, let me say that the difference between even a younger member of the next level above human and a human is like the difference between, well, it's not completely like this, but it relates to the distance between a human and an animal, a domesticated animal. So an animal that's got some smarts to it, and it's got some vibrations, and it's got some awareness, and depending on its strain and its development of its spirit body, its spirit mind, because really it's the mind that occupies the vehicle of that. In the case of a spirit, a deceased human, is the vehicle for that is the human vehicle. So the human vehicle is a container for mind, and the mind uh, that is a body in itself in development, always in development from birth, continuing on the strain of the ancestral mind that they would attach to. So that spirit body is in development around and within the human vehicle contained. And that spirit body contains mind that can be from two sources. It's either from the creator's mind of this planet and the life forms on it, or it's from the uh, mind of the human kingdom, uh, that the animal part of our minds, the mammalian is the better way to describe it, uh, um, part of our minds. And on top of that, the space alien human equivalent mind. And it's human equivalent because they haven't outgrown the human kingdom. And whatever degree that they did outgrow the human kingdom, uh, it ended up going against the members of the creator's kingdom, the evolutionary level above human, what was talked about in the record books, the kingdom of God, the true kingdom of God, and the kingdom in the heavens. The authority, not only the authority, but the many members of the organization, uh, um, the corporation, the only corporation that's benefic, even though it allows the malefic to exist among us so that we can have choices and not even and we can even not even recognize that we live within a malefic environment because the space aliens don't really care about humans except in how they could be of service to them. But the next level above human, they don't need anybody to be in service to them. So they don't cater to the people. They cater to what they're helping some of the people choose to develop to grow towards. And that is the development of a spirit body that could actually occupy uh, a type of biological, uh, dense physical body um, that the next level grows in laboratories and even can create from scratch. I don't mean from scratch, but I mean because they're using biological processes, okay, and chemical processes and all kinds of processes, and they don't have flesh bodies like human has flesh bodies, but they did give some samples to humans in some of the crashes that happened at Aztec and Roswell, probably two of the primary ones, the plains of San Augustine. Anyway, so I just this is an example of I just kind of move on to this to that to this to that because there's so much to actually talk about and describe. And, it was almost like every idea and every word uh, has application from a next level position. Uh, um, uh, Sometimes slightly different than ideas that you get in the human kingdom, even though the next level has been giving those ideas to humans for ever since they started the civilization. They've been giving all the religions in the world are generated by some kind of experiment that the next level members were conducting on Earth to help uh, young minds grow to become graduate minds. And that's a process. It's like a school, like 12 grades, and then first 6 grades, that spirit is getting into the humanness, so that by the 6th grade, they got everything made for them. They got good finances, and they even have their burial plots paid for. And just to give you examples of what Doe talked about and T talked about in regards to describing the school, and that once you got everything made for you, so to speak, doesn't mean you don't still have some lessons and stuff. You do, but once you have everything made for you, then uh, the next level has ways of helping you recognize that those things uh, um, aren't the goal of the human kingdom. They aren't the highest form of development that can be attained in the human kingdom. Because you can attain to the 12th grade to where you just, you're ready to get out of here. Doesn't mean you want to get out of here. And of course, what I'm saying about that, of course, is that the next level and T and Do and crew, they wrote in their blog, their live stream, not their live stream, their website, heavensgate.com, I think it's the fourth bullet point from the bottom. It says they have a document there that's called Our Position Against Suicide. And I always, when I come to that subject matter, I always have to point it out that it is the position that I hold, and and I and there is a reason for it. That um, there's two forms of the use of that word, and one has to do with the spirit body development, and that's the body that was developed by the next level crew members that graduated. They had developed that body enough to where it was compatible uh, with a next level dense physical body, and that's a whole nother subject. But so those who remain after their departure are that are in human vehicles, just like those students were in human vehicles, but those human vehicles had gone through changes themselves. We don't necessarily know how to measure them, but there were body changes happening because the body takes on the characteristics of the mind. And that pertains to humans and that pertains to animals, I believe, and and so that's like that's the program that's running the vehicle, that mind, that whatever that mind is around that mind. And in the human kingdom, we're surrounded by minds that are not in human vehicles, and they're Tiendo referred to them as discarnates. Or actually, the primary word they used early on in 1975 was influences, because it was most important not what they were constructed of or what their technicality was, but those things were all um, uh, true. There was technicality with the structure of a spirit body that was considered to be a disincarnate because it's no longer in a flesh. Incarnate, carnate comes from the Latin carni, for flesh. And so being disincarnate is you're not in the flesh anymore. So that's, a lot of history with that in the human kingdom. So some people believe in it, some people don't. But it is a technical condition of life. It is a technical reality of life. It's composed of elements, of particles, and like Doe compared it to plasma, and that you could have a plasma container, which the soul body is, and you can have a plasma mind body, I guess you would call it, the spirit body, because the word spirit and mind are synonymous in Tiendo's book. And if you look in the records, it's even synonymous there too. That our thoughts and the idea of pneuma, which is in the Greek, has to do with the mind. And such, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, has to do with the soul body. And you can talk to theologians about that. There's a difference between them. Anyway, but it's and so that any mind that is well, I didn't finish the sentence before on the description of that document because because humans need their bodies in order to have lessons and opportunities and service to the next level through. And the next level is interested in service, and especially now. Because now is the time when the lower forces are working the hardest to keep people away from hearing the truth about Tiendo. And because the next level with their older members and those graduate students, when they left, their minds left, and their minds also hold the force and power that helps us recognize their reality. And so that's why the meaning of that word blasphemy is interesting. I'm going to go to that little part of the scriptures that I posted there, with Revelation 13:1, which it says that, and talking about John is talking about this, and if you're not familiar with these materials, and he's saying that in whatever dreams he had, he could have had many, and they could have been more than dreams, just like even daydreaming kind of things. And he said, I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw beasts rise up out of the sea. Now, the sea in that context is the human condition, the human mind is the sea of mind. And saw the beast, it's the strain of human beings. Uh, and he saw that saw a beast, and that beast is the word therion, which that's a wild animal, a ferocious animal, a savage animal, a brutal, bestial man, even, is the way that it's defined. Um, Therion. Anyway, so this is mankind that we're talking about, rising up out of that sea. And that's, certain development in evolution that we're talking about here. They're rising up, so they're coming out of the base part of that sea, the more that people think when they're more primitive, they act more like animals,
Can you see the lights in there now? And
killing each other.
through their RV, through the screen.
Oh yeah, now I see it. Oh, okay. Oh, cool. That's all right. And so,
Oh, you have Top Chat on, and you don't have it scrolled down.
Rise Above is here. Hello, Rise Above. Good to see you. So anyway, and this beast is rising. These ferocious or bestial humans. Bestial meaning they still have their beastliness, their mammalian characteristics. It's not like those are bad. It's not a matter of good or bad. It's just that it's something to outgrow for those that want to go in that direction. And so, so this beast that they're describing, it's a name actually. Well, no, I shouldn't go there yet. It's depicted as having 7 heads and 10 horns, and you've probably heard me talk about this before, so use that might be on the stream right now. but I see people continuing to talk about these things, and so I wanted to try and offer some ideas about it. And so the 7 heads to me depicts like the 7 continents, even, or the seven uh, uh, leaders of the world, even though they might not be the leaders of the world entirely. But, uh, and that's why when I first started to look at this, when I was writing my book, uh, um, I thought, well, that looks like, the G7, the global seven, And then the 10 horns, because of the military result and the fact that the global 10 were financial ministers that pay for the military, that's the way I put it together. I thought that's what that seemed to mean. And upon those horns, there were 10 crowns. So, so that shows you a little bit that the heads aren't necessarily including the 10 kings, because that crown there actually is not the Stephanos crown. It's the diadema crown in the Greek. And the diadema is a blue band marked with white, which Persian kings used to bind on the turban or tiara, the kingly ornament for the head, the crown. So this is a human crown that we're talking about in this context. Um, and we already know that these are the ferocious bestial humans that have these 7 heads and 10 10 militaries, the G10, in my opinion. And then upon and the 10, okay, and then what's interesting that way is that, like in the United States, the president is the commander in chief, right? So he would be one of those crowns. I mean, that's equivalent. A president is kind of like a king. Uh, whether we see the way that they exercise their control over people and whether some of it's good and some of it's bad, that's a whole nother subject. Um, I mean, and none of it's, I don't think, good relative to uh, um, graduation into the human kingdom, out of the human kingdom. But but for the grades in school, there can be various levels of good and bad among the people. So that's why it's good to recognize that we can't judge other people except for what they do. I always have to add that because we can judge that and who we want to be around and who we want to think like and who we want to, and that's where the spirit body develops from what we choose to fill our minds with, what we choose to think about, what we choose to occupy our minds with. And if it goes to say that if you're occupying your mind with uh, the source, the highest source that you can imagine occupying your mind with, that you recognize has is from, it seems to be from the creator's kingdom that created this planet and life forms on it because of how they're teaching to evolve beyond it. You know, that you can't really conceive of evolving beyond it unless they are involved in that process because it's like a human, it's like a dog imagining that they could be living in a human household and they could be giving service to humans like a seeing eye dog or something. I don't know if they really are capable of having that kind of consciousness, except in their development within their strain of development of that mind. So it's got its limitations to what you can imagine. Anyway, so the next level is always giving us ways of imagining more. And that's what they've done with science fiction movies and books. Well, books primarily first, and then science fiction, and word of mouth testimonies in the people that gravitated to the religions as they came about, and then the religions went against each other because the lower forces were allowed to step in and twist everything around, but it didn't twist everything around. I shouldn't say it that way. Uh, and there's always uh, common ideas that are happening simultaneously among all the religious. And but what happens is they make more and more justifications, and I want to get to that in a minute. Because uh, so how do you know if you're going towards the highest source? Well, you don't, except if you keep on doing it when you think you've found the source of it on Earth. If you're finding it from your imagination, then it can be coming from a space alien source. It can be coming from a discarnate source of mind. It can be a trend of the thought forms from the whole society, or the political persuasions or the spiritual ideas, through the people that are teaching all different kinds of practices and so that's where the mind comes from. And that mind also has a mixture in it of mind that's from the next level. Even even a mixture of that mind from the next level in every cell in the genes, as I understand it from Tiendo. So, uh, and which makes sense to me. Uh, and more of what we hear them talking about. Well, I'm just going to be honest. Um, if somebody's open to it, it's going to make more sense to them. The more and more they hear it, but it's not going to cause them to go off themselves because there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of lessons to learn, and there's a lot of a service to give to spread this information because we don't know how far the next level is going to allow the civilization to degrade into anarchy. Anarchy doesn't just look like, well, we don't need to get into the negatives about that, but hopefully for those that are striving for service to the next level, it'll be minimal. And that's why they say the days will be shortened for the elect. In other words, so the things are going to go on, and they're going to get probably in that direction that Doe is talking about as a recycling. Um, but I don't know. I don't pretend to know when that was. Doe didn't give any years, and to him, a day was like 1,000 years. So, but he didn't think it was going to be 1,000 years from now either. Um, he thought it was going to be pretty soon. So, I don't know what that is, and it doesn't do us any good to dwell on it because no matter how much we prepare, like some people I've recognized, I heard about this from one spiritual group that I think was, they were storing food in caves and things in Montana, and they've been doing it for 20 years or more, or 30 years or more, and uh, some of the people realized that they couldn't store enough. I mean, and it wasn't gonna, it wasn't happening. So, what are you gonna do? Keep on? I guess you can. I mean, I think it makes sense from a next level perspective to, keep a certain amount of food in your house so that if things do go south for a period of time, uh, you can, and we saw that happening during those years in 2019, 2020, and thereafter, to where, grocery shelves were bare.
They were not.
Some of the shelves were bare in the grocery store I went to
Yeah, I
in
know,
New
but
York.
like you could still like stuff to
No,
eat.
there was a lot of stuff that was gone, completely gone. The pasta was gone, the rice was gone.
I'm
And,
saying you could still buy stuff to eat. We weren't starving. That's
right, we
all I'm
weren't
saying.
starving.
That's all I'm saying.
Right, I agree. I don't mean to make it sound that way. So, but yeah, but that was just to me an example of something that I wouldn't have anticipated happening. And there was the run on toilet paper that happened, and then there were limits after that to how much you could buy of something, and they still probably have some limits, but uh, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing because if people are hoarding, it's and during disasters they know that people will stock up on stuff and then sell it to people at a profit, to, bigger profit, so they can make money off the suffering of others, which is part of this human kingdom to that people can justify. Anyway, so upon these 10 crowns of uh, these kings of the earth, kings over the military, the global 10 is the way I'm calling them. Uh, uh, um, upon his heads and upon his heads, the crowns and the heads, is the name of blasphemy. Now, I wanted to focus on that because the name is actually referring to name, an identity. It's what somebody is called. It's like it's used that way 193 times as the name, and it's universally of a proper name. It's some kind the name used for everything which the name covers, everything the thought or feeling of which is aroused in the mind by mentioning, hearing, remembering the name. So it's like an identity as well. It's not just um, the cause or reason on this account because he's okay. I won't go any further because it gets too diluted, I think. But so that's what this name is. It's an identity, and it's described as. Well, let me see if there's a word. There's a Greek word of here. No, they're not saying that. But with the name, the word name, there's an association that is associating it with this word blasphema, blas, blasphemia, blasphemia in the Greek. And that's translated 16 times as blasphemy, twice as railing, and one time as evil speaking. And the definition they put on it was slander, detraction, speech that's injurious. Is that which way do you say that? Like injury, causing injury to another's good name, injurious to another's good name. Okay, impious and reproachful speech, injurious to divine majesty. Those were the definitions this Bible software put on it in the Greek. Um, so I look at that and I think, okay, so we're talking about this part of the human kingdom that are still mammalian, uh, coming out of, rising out of the, evolving beyond the base of that kingdom, and uh, and that describing them as having 7 heads and 10 horns, or G7, G10, and all the people that are with that. I'm not just talking about them. I'm talking about everybody that's aligned with them as their belief system, where they put their respect and they put their trust in. You know, it's all in degrees, of course, and it's not judging anybody because we're all in it actually, whether we like it or not. We're all part of that. Uh, um, uh, and even if we're from China and we're not talking about the G7 and G10, it's the same mind is all around us all. You know that is a human mammalian, and it's interesting that Jesus said that there was only you can only have one master. It's either God or mammon, or deities or mammon. And if you look up the word mammon, it says that it defines it as where your treasure is. And Jesus talked about where your heart, where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. So this is talking about people having their heart um, that is slanderous, you know, injurious. It's just negative, you know. It's like and it's disrespectful of the fact that this planet was created and designed to be a growing space for um, next level souls that the next level doesn't need, but it's their joy to uh, give the opportunity to work in laboratories in the next level on the spacecrafts that can be as big as a planet and that humans can't detect their operations, their physical operations on those planets or inside those planets. Whatever the case might be, I'm not saying all the planets have next level labs in them. I have no idea exactly, but I would suspect there's something happening with Saturn, uh, um, big time, and Pluto, big time. Well, yeah, I think Mars too, but I don't know. The only reason I'm singling out Saturn is because of Tiando's um, draw to Saturn's rings that they had Alodi painting that became part of what's been considered to be their logo. You'll see on the Heaven's Gate website that picture of the Saturn rings with the keyhole and Heaven's Gate on it and all that. And that's all artistry from stimulated by Tiando that Alodi created and painted with an airbrush, with oil paints, and sketched things out, and he did the whole shebang. And I watched him doing a number of those paintings. And the Saturn rings in particular, I watched him doing with an airbrush, I believe it was. And, so anyway, so, so, I, it's the next level that determines, uh, well, we can all recognize um, the negativity. Like, you see in Revelation 14 where it says that um, they have no guile. The ones that graduate, they have no guile. And the word guile, I believe, I forgot what the Greek word is, but its root base is they have no deceit. They're not, they don't have any, they're not being negative to other people. They're very pleasant people to be around because they have a higher vibration. And that's not because they've been told to have that in order to qualify. That's because they were given the tools and they put them into motion enough to where they actually became minds that were compatible with next level bodies. Because it's actually a strength. It's like when somebody conquers an addiction, they gain a certain strength of mind. That is something that uh, um, uh, is gained from conquering of every addiction, even the addiction to the human kingdom that is natural for human mammalian beings to have. And and that explains a lot of things that are in the primer for graduation, which was the Jesus materials, like in the red letters. Because the next level had a crew that was working really hard to keep that information true and real. And even though it's got its problems, those problems aren't so great that you can't see uh, the evidence of that being a primer for graduation. And you can see that in the back of the Heaven's Gate book. You can see they did quote a bunch of spirits, a bunch of, not spirits, but
Scripture.
scriptures, yeah, verses from the records. So, and I'm not going to go through so let me just jump to something because I always keep on wanting to bring it up, which I have before. Well, you know what? Let's see if there's anything in the chat, but there's not. So,
Yeah,
uh,
it's so weird. It's almost like last couple times.
yeah, and there's nobody now. Oh no, there's three individuals watching now. Yeah, well, we don't know if the fact that so many streams are done, and um, uh, I mean, it's not. There were times after documentaries were played where there were quite a few people coming into these streams, and I could see the rise and the reduction and the rise and the fall with subscribers as well. And it's a good thing that it doesn't really matter that much to me, uh, because uh, you know, some people will listen to this later, and other people, aren't going to listen to it at all. But we're still putting out the thoughts, we're putting out the ideas and the words, and for whatever they can be worth to somebody. and but the lower forces definitely don't want anybody paying any serious attention to this information. I don't have to make that up. I don't have to say that to appeal to somebody's rebelliousness in society. You're really being a rebel if you listen to this material. Which is true though. You're gonna be a rebel because few people are gonna, after the way that the media slaughtered the information, even though the next level didn't allow them to entirely, because the next level knows that there will be some that will see through the slaughter of Doe's name and T's name and the crew members' names, uh, with depicting them as gullible or tricked or easily swayed or needy to believe in something greater than themselves, or and that the leaders were manipulative because they got off on the ego of having students and all the things that are totally wrong. And the way you're going to see that they're totally wrong, if that's something that somebody wants to actually learn about, is by listening to the audio tapes. Even still, you might not come away with seeing how wrong those depictions were of them, because it's up to us on what we're going to allow ourselves to um, believe and come to know. And it's like somebody studying to be a car mechanic, but they never work on a car. There's only a certain amount of insights they're going to get from just watching, listen to the book. Sure, if the books are good and specific, then they can get an idea of what an engine sounds like when its valve covers are going bad and stuff like that. But it's probably not a great example, but uh, it is the same kind of thing to where you're actually learning, and by talking about the information to others, not talking at them, but participating in conversation when it feels like it's something that your older members would do in that circumstance, after asking them if this is the time, or having that mindset at least on your mind that you want to be open to sharing something about Tiendo with somebody else. It's something that takes effort. It's not easy to do necessarily, but and we can get in the habit of thinking that, oh, someone else will do it, or it's not necessary, or because there is a certain amount of backlash that can happen, but I don't think we need to be afraid of that. Doe didn't feel like we needed to be afraid of that, and if that's changed now, I don't know. But I mean, it's good to be cautious. It's good to be cautious in all ways. Like Kathy was driving in her job on the way back, and she watched somebody skid out and turn around in the median where they could have even hit her if she was going a little slower. You thought, yeah, because she would have got to it later, right? She was right on the road, huh?
They were in front of me. I was right here.
Right. Wow. And how much distance was there in between you?
That much. Like
I don't know what that
about
much is.
2 car lengths.
2 car lengths.
About,
Holy
yeah.
smokes.
And
So then
I
you
don't know
went
what,
around there to
I
the
don't,
right, or
it all happened so fast. I don't even know. I don't know. It almost looked like they jerked their steering wheel. I don't know what happened. Like all of a sudden I thought, are they trying to make a U-turn in the middle of the frickin' freeway? Cuz
wow.
sometimes people will do that. Like they see the U-turn area, which is not the U-turn area. It's for
Yeah.
the cops to sit.
Right.
And I thought, I don't know. That's what it looked like they were doing at first. Like
Hmm.
just all of a sudden they just went yoink to the left. And then they were going, I was going probably 77. It was raining. We should not have been going that fast. Uh, Obviously. Um, and their car just went like straight left, and thank God the embankment was just like that. It was like that, and they went straight up like that. I could see the cars coming down the hill and oncoming track, the other side of the freeway. They were like right there. And this car went up like that, and then the person like was trying to get control. So this was all in a second.
Yeah.
The person was trying to get control, and they just basically did a complete like 360 and ended up coming back into the lane, the far left lane
Hmm.
that I was still, traveling in passing,
Right.
because they like spun
So
out.
then you went to the right quickly?
It happened in a second. I didn't do anything. I just kept driving.
So you didn't think about having to
I didn't
avoid
have
it. Like
time to
I've
react.
seen you a number of times where,
Yeah,
you were too close to somebody or
and
whatever,
I'll
or they
speed
stop
up.
suddenly and you just zip
Yeah,
around them.
yeah. It just like this, I didn't react at all because I didn't need to react. I just needed to keep going. If I would have stopped, if I would have, like they literally just
They were
like,
still moving when you went
yes,
past them.
yes. They're still coming into the left lane.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it really scared me.
So did you look in your mirror as you passed?
They were able to stop.
Oh, okay.
They got into the lane, and then they were still turning. So they like, here's the lane, and they were about this far into the lane. Like
Uh-huh.
halfway into it, and they were still turning, and then they came back onto the shoulder.
Right.
Like the person did a really good job getting that under control, but they must have been terrified
Yeah.
because all of a sudden they were going almost 80, and then they were making a sharp left turn on Hucking Freeway
Yeah. And they didn't tip over or anything.
in downpouring rain.
Downpouring rain. So you,
It was
did you have much, what do they call hydroplaning?
no.
No? Hmm.
Our tires are set, Our
Yeah, but there's
tires are
still, if
great.
you hit a certain amount of water on the road, you're going to be above that
Yeah.
pavement.
The first indication that today was going to be a special day was on the way into town, and there was somebody facing the wrong way on the freeway, spun out with their lights and their hazards on. And I knew that, okay,
Hmm.
it's the first big rain the area's had. So, yeah. Not today, Satan.
Okay, um, so let me get back to a little bit before I'm going to probably not talk much longer, but unless there's something that somebody might be listening and um, might have a question or a comment about.
Yeah, you didn't eat that much yet either.
Hmm?
You haven't eaten that much yet either.
Yeah, I know. I have. Yeah, that's true, and I'm probably going to work tomorrow, right?
Yeah, and
So,
that's yeah.
yeah, so it's 6 o'clock. So, got a couple more hours before I have to hit the sack to get some rest for working, getting up early tomorrow and working. So, but this part where Doe says in the tape that he's talking about that he wanted the students to think of Tian-Do as the vibration contained in their spirit bodies, so much so that if around anyone of us outside a physical body, you would recognize our vibration, just like me recognizing you by your spirit body, and him recognizing T by her spirit body. And which he doesn't say that exactly right here, but he wanted, because he was going to leave, and he was talking about and I remember this. He was talking about earlier about let me see where I should start on this. All right, I'll go here. So he was talking about how he was going to be going away, but not, away from his vehicle, but he was going to be living in a different location. And he didn't know exactly where yet, I don't think. But he might have had some pretty good ideas, or he might have even been working on a place. There's evidence of that too being talked about, but which happened all the time. And this is after he came from a period of time to where he was uh, living with us in the same building, even the same house, or in an apartment that was outside of that was above the garage in Boulder Canyon where we were at the time. And so he was like preparing the students that for his and helping them recognize that this wasn't like they were something wrong with them.
The other party was annoying, so I voted my freedoms away.
And um, and that so he felt like by going away that he was actually going to be closer to the students because he would be going to improve his relationship with his older member who he was talking about as T, who was outside her body at the time because she left their vehicle in 1985. And he'd been in communication with T since that time, but it's not the kind of communication that you can describe in the ways that other people describe communication. It's not channeling, and it's not being a medium for. In a sense, there's some truth to that, I guess, that you are perceiving their minds, but uh, part of what happens when somebody is living with somebody else is they learn to think and act in the ways that the other person thinks and acts. And so they are identifying the other person's spiritual body so much so that if somebody leaves their vehicle, uh, they could still perceive that individual spirit being around them at times. And I know I haven't perceived that with like my parents' vehicles that died. Um, but I know some of the other parts of the family recognize times where they recognized the spirit of their uncle or their, in one case, my dad, because my niece recognized that one point she saw him mowing the lawn, which he always did, right? And I did it a lot too, of course, when I was growing up. But now that could have been, you can say that, well, that's just her memory of that when she was looking out on the lawn. And it could be, but it could also be that actually he was doing that at that moment because he was taking care of the property where he was like a guardian angel to that family after he left his vehicle. And there was other evidence of that too with my brother and that my brother had the idea, or other people had the idea that my dad saved his kids when they fell into the canal and they went on to the bottom of the canal. And this guy that was working on his boat a little ways down came running and didn't even testify that he didn't even know why he was going in that direction. And so he ended up jumping in and pulling the stroller up. Anyway, so people thought that my dad was there helping alert that guy to those to his grandchildren being almost drowned, and both of them are fine. Anyway, so I mean, there's all kinds of experiences that people have in life, and you don't have to have it directly to feel like, wow, that makes sense, that's possible, And but if we think it's not possible, well, then we're just closing our minds to something that is there to learn about, because there's a lot of evidence of it. And that's where it also goes towards this whole classroom. Like if you weren't somebody that um, could fathom some of these ideas, then you weren't going to join up with TNO. You know, I mean, the idea of getting on a UFO and going someplace else didn't appeal to me at all. It sounded like it was possible. It sounded like it was, I even thought it was real. And I still think it's real. But that doesn't mean that every UFO is from the Creator's kingdom. In fact, there can be many that are from the lower forces, the space alien souls, with their hybridized human flesh bodies that they, have on board their spacecrafts, and they also have certain individuals giving allegiance to them and being like surrogates, or not surrogates, but being like, well, yeah, timeshares, but also being like ambassadors. They're ambassadors to the human kingdom. To where they're talking about the space alien group as, like I used to listen to, what was his name? I always forget his name, but, huh? Ike, yeah. Yeah, Ike and Rael, yeah, they're two individuals that I believe are contactees. This was another individual, and I saw his name flash in front of me, and then I can't actually see it. But Alex Collier, that's his name, Alex Collier. And I remember listening to him and some of the talks he was giving to a group of people that I think believed in his experiences and what he got from it. And and he never actually, that I heard, ever said that he was the return of Jesus, but he kind of implicated it, as did David Icke, I believe, and as did Rael to some degree, even though Rael separated himself from being the returned Christ into being the returned Maitreya, which is actually, if you look up the meaning of the Maitreya and the students that follow the Maitreya in the literature that's been written about that literature that was passed on through the manuscripts from the Hindu Buddhist traditions and ways of thinking, then you see that their behaviors and ways are very much about separating from the human kingdom, the way that the Buddha was teaching as well, and working towards the ideas of purity, which is what it takes to become a graduate member of the next level, and that everybody can be in progress of that in all different degrees, and so that's the path, and that's progress is between the person and looking to whoever their older member is, and so for some people that can be a positive to be in different groups that aren't working towards directly for Tiendo, but they're working on their own development because of some of the characteristics that they're learning, by being associated with people that are a different space alien group. But that this time period now, some are going to be not satisfied with those different groups or religions, and they're going to find themselves separating from that body of information because they can get the smelling salts of next level, which happens every time the next level documentary plays on the airwaves. People are getting a certain type of smelling salt because it's the truth, it's real, it's the higher mind, and that's why it's so hard to also grab onto, because it's meant to be that way, because individuals that have been preparing for that in their lives, they kind of know it when they see it, but that doesn't mean that they're hooked right away. They might be at the moment, but they get challenged with that good kind of hook because it's not the next level hooking somebody to eat them. It's the next level hooking somebody to help them become a living being that doesn't die anymore, that's taken out of the cyclic world of human and animal and a plant and mineral. So still nothing in the chat room beyond Rise Above saying hello. And there's now one person watching, and I don't know if that's Rise Above, that's me. So maybe it's a time to, now that I approached another part of that, part of the tape, time for me to say goodnight. Unless somebody, unless the one person, if it's Rise Above or it's me, says something in the chat in the next minute. I've been talking for 65 minutes, so it's been a decent stream. So, good night, folks. Good night, Rise Above.